This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Hawkeye, Episode 1, Never Meet Your Heroes.
Yeah, as much as I love having you home for the holidays, I'm not thrilled that I'm about to replace an irreplaceable clock tower.
It was a bell tower.
The dean said it had a bell and a clock, and overachiever that you are, you managed to destroy both.
What can I do to make it better, Mom?
I started by canceling your credit cards, and we're going to have a much longer talk about this tower that you destroyed without joking. I know that young people think they're invincible, and rich people think they're invincible, and you have always been both, so take it from someone who hasn't. You're not. You will get hurt. So please, don't go out looking for it.
Hey fellow Defenders, we did record this podcast as part of a double header where we recorded episode 1 and episode 2 at the same time, but it went a bit long. I thought before the discussion we'd be able to put out one episode for both episodes of Hawkeye, but I thought when editing it would be easier to put it out as one podcast for each episode of Hawkeye. So here is our podcast on episode 1 of Hawkeye. Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to Defenders Podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back in Marvel live action, and I know a lot of our wonderful listeners did skip What If, which means this is the first time we're talking to you about Marvel TV since July.
Unless you've been listening to our movies at TV Podcast Industries, where we did do the MCU-based ones.
Yes, we did. And I suppose since Shang-Chi was released on TV screens on Disney Plus, I guess you might call that Marvel TV as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe that was it. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. Welcome back. I am one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out this quiver of podcasters, I am Chris.
Excellent. Yes, welcome back. Delighted to be talking about Hawkeye. We are going to go into full spoiler-filled details about the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye, but we're going to talk about episode 1 first, followed by episode 2 on the podcast. So if you do want to just watch the episodes and listen to our podcast, you can stop halfway through, basically, and you won't be spoiled in episode 2, right? That's what we're hoping, right?
Yes, that's the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Excellent. If you haven't watched the episode at all, though, head on over to Disney Plus. The first 2 episodes are available right now, and go watch them. Before we go into it, guys, anybody getting some Defenders vibes from Hawkeye? We're back in New York. We're back with a underground mafia kind of group. We're back in high society like we were with Iron Fist. Anybody feeling a little bit of Marvel Netflix Defenders vibes?
Definitely. Those water towers on the opening or closing credits.
Mm-hmm.
I was just there on Daredevil with that, and I was kind of expecting the Hand to sort of pounce out from literally around any corner.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's Daredevil at Christmas. How's that?
Yeah.
It has a Christmassy vibe. Winter's in the air. You can taste the snow flakes as they flitter down from the sky, along with some Russian mafias and everything else in between.
It's Christmas Mafia.
Yeah, Christmas Mafia. Well, technically tracksuit Mafia, but it's a bit on the nose.
What a present.
Well, before we get into our podcast, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, you can subscribe to us on TV Podcast Industries, wherever you get good podcasts, or you can go over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. Also over the website, you should be able to find details of our pub quiz, which we're doing on both shows that we're covering, Hawkeye and on Wheel of Time. So 2 opportunities to enter either of those pub quizzes. You will get your first 2 questions for the Hawkeye pub quiz later on the podcast. And all you need to do is send your answers into feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com. And at the end of our season of Hawkeye, we will be picking out a winner for some Hawkeye's goodies. The fellow Defender who's got the most questions correct. There you go.
Yes, and if it's a tie, then out comes the glorious tombola, in which we'll pick the winner from all those that have scored the highest marks.
Or Santa hat, maybe.
Or Santa hat, yes. Or Christmas stocking, even.
Well, it will be a New Year's hat, because this finished just Christmas week, and we'll probably record just after on our wrap-up.
Yes, closing date for the Hawkeye and Wheel of Time pub quiz is the 31st of December. So you're completely correct, Chris. We will be pulling out the winner of both of those at the start of the new year. You can also email us to that email address with any thoughts that you have on any of the shows we're covering to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Without further ado, let's get into the podcast about Hawkeye episode 1. Executive producer for this show is Jonathan Igla. He started out on Mad Men and Masters of Sex and is the lead writer for Hawkeye. He's written the first episode of the show as well.
Excellent stuff. That's an interesting combination for Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Hopefully Masters of Sex taught him about the absurd and the giggles.
Yeah, perhaps. I have read that line that I wrote to say what shows you did before. I read it about 3 times as Mad Max. I'm pushing words together this afternoon. Hopefully I won't do that too much throughout the podcast. The episode was directed by Rhys Thomas. Rhys Thomas has a really interesting history. He's done Saturday Night Live. He did the John Mulaney show, John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch, which is a really fun comedy special. So going from comedy over to Hawkeye, Marvel TV show. That's kind of cool.
And you can get all that flavour throughout these episodes. This is probably one of the more wink wink, nudge nudge, how's your father, direct based comedy from the MCU that we've had in a long time.
Yeah, definitely some good comedy in this one as well.
Oh yeah, and I'm sorry, but also I just meant more of the, hey, you got that joke? There you go.
That sounds a little bit like you hated the comedy, Chris.
Oh, no, that's the style, the wink, winch, nudge, nudge.
Did you get the joke? Do I need to push it further? That sounds a little bit like you didn't enjoy it, Chris.
It is a bit on the nose.
Rhys Thomas has also directed episodes of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt as well, so has done live action comedy before as well. So great to have him on board for the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Hawkeye episode 1, Never Meet Your Heroes?
Sure. Ho, ho, ho. It's 2012, and as the Battle of New York rages between the Avengers and the Chitauri, a young Kate Bishop witnesses Hawkeye battling his foes and aspires to become a hero like him after he unknowingly saves her life. In the present day, Clint Barton is spending some quality time with his children in the lead up to Christmas in New York, with musicals, meals, and movie marathons. Meanwhile, Kate Bishop, back from her destructive semester at college, attends a charity auction gala with her mother, Eleanor, and is surprised to learn that her mother is engaged to Jack Duquesne. After witnessing an argument between her mother and Jack's uncle, Armand III, Kate follows him into the basement of the building, where she stumbles onto a black market auction, where Armand and Jack are bidding on items recovered from the remains of the Avengers compound. The auction is interrupted by the Tracksuit Mafia, a Russian street gang who attempts to recover a watch among the items. Kate manages to hide her identity using one of the auction items, Clint Barton's Ronin suit, and defeats the Tracksuit Mafia. She escapes to her apartment after rescuing a stray one-eyed dog, but heads back out to learn more about Armand III. When she breaks into and enters his home, she discovers that Armand has been murdered. While running away from the crime scene, she is cornered by the Tracksuit Mafia, but is rescued by Clint, who is curious to know who is wearing his Ronin suit and why it's been heavily featured on the evening news.
Excellent. Good kick-off to the first episode of Hawkeye.
Exactly. It's doing what we wanted to do. It's setting the stage. It's centering the action and the story on Kate, while also, to be fair, giving you everything you need to know for the rest of the time about Clint and where he's at, and kind of setting the stage of the musical, which will be the show, much like the Rogers, the musical.
Absolutely. What a way to kick us off as well. And what a great way for Disney Plus to release these episodes. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our American listeners, because this is a holiday-themed show stemming from the day before Thanksgiving to the day before Christmas. What a great release schedule that Disney have decided for this. It's really cool.
It's also 6 days to Christmas in the show. So as we go further and further into the next 5 episodes after this one, of a 6 episode season, it's predominantly going to get us to Christmas Day. So it's going to finish on that, like, hopeful kind of, that you can see it now. It's going to be the end of Home Alone type ending where everyone's around a tree. the Clint and Kate are a bit beaten up, but they're drinking hot cocoa by a fire around a Christmas tree singing Yuletide.
Well, he better make it home to his family by Christmas. That's the plan.
Yes.
The way we're going to talk about these episodes, as usual, is by picking out our major points from the episode. Hey, it's Hawkeye. How about we go for arrow points?
Yeah, I think arrow points sounds pretty good. It's character relevant. We could have done Christmas baubles or sort of canine eyeballs or something like that, but certainly it is really, well, I've had to really adjust to this Christmas theme. I guess we're covering Wheel of Time. We did Why the Last Man. And so I really had to get myself into the headspace of a Christmas movie. So we've been watching like Gremlins and trying to watch loads of Christmas movies just to kind of get back into it.
Yeah.
Because it's only really just started to get cold here. So it's not really been that kind of Christmassy feeling. We don't have any decorations up. So
only a month away as we record, though.
Well, that is true, but I'm definitely in that headspace now. And I must say, really enjoyed this, and I enjoy the arrow points as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I was trying to be really smart with my selection of arrow points, and I looked up what the tip of an arrow is called, and it is called a bullet point, apparently. So I can't really use that. That wouldn't get it across. So our arrow point number 1, let's go back to 2012 and the opening as Hawkeye faces the Chitauri. I think it's probably good to talk about this. I know there's loads of stuff we could talk about in an episode, especially when we only have 3 points to talk about, but I think for us as Defenders TV podcast, or formerly Defenders TV podcast, who covered every single episode of the Defenders shows, whose only link to the MCU was they kept mentioning the event in New York down the street. Yet this show opens up with effectively some recut footage and some matched up footage of Kate Bishop in her home as the Chitauri attack. I thought this was a really effective opening.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. This was some of my most favourite. This is one of the most favourite openings I've had in a long time, because this is how we know we are now almost a decade plus into the MCU, and 24 films and a number of shows, etc. Because the next round of heroes within Phase 4 will have been kids and will have been kind of brought up in the world post the Chitauri invasion. And this is it's going to be a major moment. So it makes sense that these things are going to have impact, but at the same time talked about like, in Shang-Chi and the snap at the end of Infinity War and the beginning of Endgame. It's like that kind of, it's talked about, but everything just goes on. It's great to see it just shown in that way.
Yeah.
And I've already seen, the show's been out 24 hours and someone has already on the internet cut and matched the scene of Hawkeye jumping and doing his swing with the Kate Bishop scenes.
So cool.
And of course, perfectly aligned, well done Disney, but just fantastic to see that they took that level of detail into it.
Yeah.
Even without the placard saying 2012, I love that you could have known what day it was because you just get that noise in the background of the Chitauri vehicle going past her window and you kind of go, ooh, wow, this is just at that moment.
But that's what was cool about it, because as soon as 2012 came up, New York, you're going, it's the Battle of New York, it's the Chitauri, and then you're just waiting for it to happen, and it happens in Kate's bedroom, and you just see that shadow, like, and the noise just zoom past the window, and you're just like, oh, that's so cool, even though you know it's happening and all that. And I just thought that was so brilliant, and that they picked, with it being Hawkeye, that was one of my favorite moments, him doing the flip and just having that and seeing it from Kate's perspective. Yeah. I would want to be an archer, and basically join archery club. Yep. Probably wouldn't be quite as much of an overachiever as Kate. I'd probably fail to hit the bullseye. I certainly wouldn't be able to be doing parkour up the side of a college building at uni. So, but this was fantastic opening for me.
Well, can we talk about what it establishes about Kate as a character as well? So some of the interesting things that it established just in this opening scene, it's not just her in New York in 2012. It also establishes she is massively wealthy, or at least the family are massively wealthy. That penthouse apartment where you have her bedroom on the top floor with her parents' bedroom. Then you have an area where where the kitchen is. Then her mom says, I'm going downstairs. This is probably the most expensive looking apartment in New York, right? So she does come from significant money, but there is a fight between her parents about that money and the fact that they may lose the apartment because of the stock market going up and down. John, you had a question about this, that you think this may cause some question over Kate's mom.
Yeah, for me, the relationship just felt really off kilter, you know, and you just wondered whether there was more stuff. And I think it was because, you know, there's at the end as the apartment's beginning to crumble, there's like, where's Daddy? And you hear Kate screaming, Daddy. And then, you know, it cuts to effectively Daddy isn't okay. He's died in the attack. But it's just with everything that happened afterwards, where you see Armand and Eleanor having that fight. You see her kind of cover that up as well to Kate. And of course, we don't see her father die in any way, sort of, even if it's like, you know, just before he gets covered in rubble. And why didn't they get covered in rubble as well, given that they were heading downstairs? And so
would have ended the series pretty quickly.
No, exactly. But it was just, I suddenly kind of just, you know, they're definitely making Eleanor more suspicious than you would have initially thought. Certainly with the exchange with Armand, the third. And I just wondered, because when Kate comes downstairs shouting for her mom and her dad, she's no longer in the kitchen. Now, when I watched it a second time, she has left by that stage. You do see her taking the plates of the waffles and the strawberries out. But I was just wondering, you know, just maybe there's something a bit nefarious. I mean, she's certainly been set up that way anyway.
See, this is what happens when we watch things like Wheel of Time and Why the Last Man for months on end. And even What If was quite a dark show, so with little twists and turns in there. So this is what happens. Everybody is under suspicion in this show. I want to point out that this is the first time we've had a character called Derek in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Kate's father is called Derek. While they're in that argument, Eleanor calls him by Derek. The subtitles don't even mention it. I heard the name. It's like, that's my name. I know, Chris, you have an overabundance of Chris's in the MCU. John, there's quite a few Johns in there as well. So I was just happy to hear my name on screen. And then they took it off all the subtitles, which was quite annoying. The other big thing that we do learn in this kind of opening sequence, when it goes to, these aren't opening credits, because these opening credits are more of a montage about how Kate has grown up. This is something that we probably won't see in any of the future episodes. We certainly don't see in episode 2, and that's not a big spoiler, so I'm sure that's fine. But it is the montage of all the training that she's gone through to get to this massively proficient fighter and massively proficient archer. Like, that's all contained within the animated opening credits.
Yeah, this for me was the most shock and awe moment of that whole opening. It was just, I've never seen them use this visual telling or this visual style for storytelling. Usually it is like, much like kind of, what was it, Team America. It's gonna be a montage. Kind of that. It is that any other show style, we would have got a very much live action seeing Kate fall. We got it with Carol Danvers in Captain Marvel, that essentially that training montage of her being the stronger woman, growing. And again, that was great for that movie. Yeah. I was expecting it here, and they completely turned it on their head by choosing a visual style, a style of telling where it is very unique. It is very based in the comic books. And it brings in that, I hate to say, it brings in that comic flavor of like, hey, you're still in the MCU. This is going to be a fun ride. Let's tell you through bright purples and blues and pinks and whites and blacks. And they were able to say so much during that. Absolutely. Like, you learn straight away that Kate is, like, she is a badass. Like, she's constantly getting knocked down in the beginning, and you see her progress from, like, losing at the very last place to third, second, first. And then trophy after trophy after trophy after trophy after style after like karate, gymnastics, jiu-jitsu, parkour, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
All culminating in the clock tower.
Absolutely. Or the bell tower, Chris, just
The
happens
bell-
to have a clock on it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's both.
Yeah, I have to say this scene in itself just is a fun introduction to Kate's character at the bell tower, the clock tower. Haley Steinfeld.
Diddly ding.
That's Seinfeld, John.
I know.
Ah.
I just kept calling her Haley Seinfeld, and that's all I could think of. And then I realized I was getting it wrong. Sorry,
But-
I digress.
She's so good. She's so
Yes.
much fun in the show, and this opening scene shows you how great she is with a bow, that she's got good friends around her, even though they're leading her to do things that she probably shouldn't be doing in college. I still don't understand how the entire bell tower collapsed from the rope that rings the bell pulling downwards, because surely that's exactly what that rope is supposed to do. Hopefully that doesn't collapse any bell towers. But it's a fun scene. So
It is. It's a fun scene, definitely. Maybe that arrow also overachieved, like Kate. You know, I really did like her mum saying, you know, the overachiever that you are, you destroyed both the clock and the tower, and now I've got to replace an irreplaceable clock tower. It's just like, oh yeah. I mean, I thought that was really good, and it also it connects into what we see her, you know, doing all this, the archery, the martial arts. You even see the medals in her bedroom in 2012, and so and she's at university. She's from a wealthy family.
Oh yeah.
And I like, you know, she says you're both wealthy and you're young, and you just think nothing can harm you. And that's dangerous. You know, you've got to be careful. And so
young people and rich people both think they're invincible.
Yes, exactly.
And again, I like the illusion of that. You know, she's just knocked down a clock tower in a college, and she just expects her mom to take out the checkbook and pay it off. And her mom will, because her mom and herself don't have a good relationship. That's shown right at the start when she falls over. Her mom goes to her husband and goes, "Go straight up there. She's not going to want me," kind of thing. You know, it's shown all the way there. And 10 years later, still the same relationship. So loads about Kate in that first 5 minutes of the episode. Anything else that we haven't touched upon from that opening kind of portion of the episode?
Yeah, just a quick for me. Haley Steinfeld is having having an amazing moment. Dickinson is on Apple at the moment. This is here, and she's also in Arcane on Netflix. She's on all three major streaming platforms, shows concurrently, and she's the lead in all of them. And I think like I want to say this is her coming out moment, but she, like Bumblebee, she was in Bumblebee, which is Transformers, which is huge.
Yeah. It was actually good after 5 terrible Transformers films.
I know. Yeah. And this is her, like, she very much showing her acting chops, because for me, this opening montage and this opening sequence, the strength of the writing is huge. Like, both narrative and then actually the banter between Kate and her mother. Like that, like you said, that rich versus young being invincible. That's very quick-witted, quick turnaround. And then Kate is one with the quips in the comic books. So they very much have her down as a character, because she is quipping back very quickly. Now, they're not the best ones, because she still has training to do. Over time, she'll meet Peter Parker. Her quips will get better. It will be fine.
Maybe.
But no, I really, really love this opening. That's all I wanted to say.
Excellent. We go on to our point number 2 then.
Let's
and get
do
on
it.
to an underground auction.
Yeah, I mean, on this, I mean, first off, before the auction, you know, just we get the sense of the strange relationship, because her mum hasn't even let her know that she's gotten engaged to Jack Duquesne.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's got you just there going, okay, is that just wealthy family syndrome that they don't really talk because it's off to boarding school and so on. And, you know, is it that dynamic? But at the same time, whilst the dynamic is strained, it seems like they can still talk to one another. Yeah. But I can imagine, you know, Kate seeing Jack show up with that mustache, it is a little disheartening, for sure. I guess she's not really, gotten over the loss of her father as well, in terms of that, it's that whole sort of dynamic. So it keeps that strained, and something alluded to as well. The reason why, Kate follows Armand the Third, who's Jack's uncle, it is because of that conversation that she just kind of sees happening between Armand and Eleanor. Kate seems to think that Armand is threatening Eleanor, when in fact, he's really saying your empire is built on a lie. He says, I've given yourself a chance to explain. I know something, I know people who are dangerous as well. So,
absolutely.
This is more of a reveal that he is doing here, and telling her he knows her reveal that she is keeping hidden, particularly, I guess, from her daughter. So, that's kind of a really nice framing. I loved how they did that, and I love that Kate took it in a different way. But ultimately, she follows him as a result of that, because he, kind of surreptitiously heads off down through the kitchens and so on.
He tells everybody he's going home as well.
Well, exactly. So, to this underground black market auction, selling off effectively barely legal sort of recovered, stolen black market items. And so I did like the first one, which I wondered whether it was something out of Jurassic Park or whether it was a Chitauri. It looked like a Triceratops head. Yeah. Where he says, you can't publicly display this, so.
And don't tell anybody where you got it. Exactly. Great to see Simon Callow here as Armando.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Simon Callow, probably best known for his role in Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Yes.
And one of the best characters in that movie, still stands up to this day. A great character actor. So great to see him in here as Armando. The third of 7 or more is the question. 7's probably enough, isn't it?
I get quite enough.
Yeah. What do you think of this idea of the underground auction? This idea of everybody bidding on these items that have been some stolen from the Avengers compound, some from other sources. This idea that there is an auction for these prized items and how they're feeding into the underground black market.
I love this. This for me was fantastic. One of the most fun parts was this is feeding off Homecoming, that they're originally Damage Inc. were going in and trying to scoop up everything quickly. And there's just people were going in and grabbing them all along. And then we saw with the Vulture, he was grabbing all this stuff. And yeah, it makes sense. Every now and again, things are going to fall off the back of a lorry, much like a massive Triceratops skull. So for me, I love this. I love the idea that there is this underground market. And you're going to have, there is, in real life, there's apparently stolen works of art.
Absolutely.
Just being hung in very rich people's homes, and they're like, oh, it's just a fake. But no, the fake's in the museum because it was stolen years later.
We heard a lot about that in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, didn't we?
Exactly.
Yes, from a major character who was doing all that dealing in Madripoor, right? So, so you never know. Maybe they're involved. Hopefully you've all seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier and know exactly who I'm talking about there.
We do.
Yeah. I know you.
Well, we have.
I'm just affirming that not only did we, but I also remember.
Yeah. But I wonder, now that person's in the US, would they be the people that set up the underground auction here?
That's a good link.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. 2 more things to talk about the underground auction. We can't get away from the big point about it, which is that Kate gets the Ronin suit and has a massive fight in the wine cellar. That was a cool fight. I loved
it really
the kind
was.
of slapstick nature of it as well. I know smashing someone over the head with a real bottle of wine, a full bottle of wine, is a very powerful weapon. But I thought the way they used it and the style they used it in seemed quite Jackie Chan, that kind of style of using everything around her. I love, there's a great moment where she just kicks a bottle up into someone's face and knocks it out. I think that was my favourite move that she did.
Yeah.
She brought her foot down, like almost like it was like, whoosh, and it just went bing. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was really good. And to be honest, really powerful weapon, but a tragic waste of good red wine. I was kind of there going,
save the wine.
Not the wine. I thought she might be sort of taking a few bottles, putting it into the Ronin suit while she goes along. But I really like this. As you say, the elements of slapstick on it. I love the Gary gag as well when she's initially down there with the entree, the little hors d'oeuvres that she's passing around as a kind of disguise. But I love that she goes from that disguise of being sort of confused as being one of the waiters to sort of effectively disguising herself in then this Ronin suit, which is part of this collection here. Yeah, of course, the other one being the Ronin sword as well, which we see Armand and Jack fighting over. And again, something about the money there, where Armand is saying, you don't have any money. And he's, well, when I get my inheritance, there will be money there in bags, loads of it. So interesting.
Like 425 grand by sticking the sword in his pocket after
exactly.
So it turns out that Jack, even though he didn't win the auction, ends off getting that sword, sticking it in his pocket and taking it with him. So I think the 425 was what he had put up for it, and I think Armand was able to go to 475.
He was, yeah.
But the Gary gag, sorry, really quickly, loved it. Loved the idea that she picked a random name out of the sky of a supervisor. Then the supervisor comes down. Then she says, I quit because you don't even remember my name. That's your problem.
Yeah.
Walks away. Brilliant Haley Steinfeld moment.
Really good. And
last piece to talk about on this is, what is it that the Russian mafia group wants, the Russian organized gang wants? They seem to want a watch from the Avengers compound. Why is a watch so important? Is it Tony Stark's watch with an Iron Man suit inside, do you think?
It's a key. I bet you anything. It's a techno piece of key from Tony. It's a pocket watch. It's probably, I'm sure everyone's already gone back and looked.
Right.
It looked like it was quite a fast kind of wristwatch.
Yeah.
But like very, very thick, the style he would wear.
Now, you do say Tony, but there is one other character that we know was obsessed with watches, which is Dr. Stephen Strange. He had about 25 individual watches in his apartment.
That is true.
And was wearing one.
But he never lived on Avengers compound.
That is true as well.
He was at the destruction of Avengers compound, though, Chris, because that's where the big battle with Thanos happened.
True, but all of his watches wouldn't have been.
It's his watch, but you never know.
But that was his watch collection was as Stephen Strange, and you couldn't really spot whether he was still wearing one, I guess, in his new robes as the Sorcerer Supreme, or just Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking more Tony Stark.
I know.
I'm
trying to add a little extra.
It could be Mephisto's watch. Who knows? But the other thing as well is Jack does have a obsession over swords as well.
Yes, it is.
And we see that in Eleanor's apartment as well, that he's moved in there and brought all his swords as well, and that are displayed through the apartment. So definitely reference to a character that I certainly would never have gotten in A Month of Sundays, and only after looking up. But the Swordsman is a comic character.
Yeah, it's not that you wouldn't have gotten.
I really wouldn't,
because it's more that you wouldn't have got that any kind of history of the character Swordsman, because you've never seen him in comic books. But if you have a guy with that mustache who carries swords around all the time, you could probably guess that his name in comics is Swordsman. Yes.
Yeah, or Zorro.
Or Zorro, perhaps. Yes.
Yeah. There's going to be a connection. If they're playing by the thing, he is, in the comic books, he is connected to Hawkeye and Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
In both. So we'll see how it plays out. They put it a bit on the nose. So basically, I saw
like his moustache.
Well, yeah.
Or
that's
just
at the
under.
bottom.
That's under his nose, exactly.
Much like they put the swords all around the apartment under our noses.
Yeah.
Because it was just like that, and then stealing. I was like, oh, okay, right. I know the character name. I'm like, you're leaning in. This is it. It's not a misdirection or a fake. It's
a red herring. The show will not be finding out that this guy is swordsman at the end of the show. This is just one of those wonderful things that they allow us to go and Google for a week in between two episodes. That's basically it, right?
Well, we hope so. But we will see. We will very much see.
Hope the show doesn't play out as simply as that. Oh my god. He's swordsman. Did you know you're marrying swordsman? And then the show ends. But I think that's it for arrow point number 2. Let's go on to our final arrow points, because we haven't really talked much about Clint Barton in the episode of Hawkeye yet, mostly about Kate and her journey. So our point number 3 is the Barton family outing, which is kind of lovely considering, we know how important Clint's family have been. We met them first back in Age of Ultron, when the whole crew, all of the Avengers went to stay on Clint Barton's farm. We met his wife and kids back then, and then they disappeared in the blip. So he went off and became the Ronin effectively. And now we have him having a fun outing with his family in New York, except for his wife, who once again only appears on the other side of a mobile phone, which I thought was a really good little gag for fans of Avengers. That's how they all knew the world had restored to normal, was because his wife Laura called him up on his mobile phone. So I like that the first time we see her here is on the other side of a mobile phone. I think that's a good gag.
I know. I felt really sorry for his wife, to be honest, being left out of the family Christmas. But
many parents would say, if you could just take my kids out from under me for a couple of hours or a day or two, I could get this Christmas shopping and get all the Christmas tree up and decorations. So maybe she was very happy to get a couple of days.
Yeah,
sorting things out.
But Clint Barton could do this all day. I have to say, Jeremy Renner, I loved all the way through that musical. I loved he wasn't there in reference to Ant-Man. It was just really, really good. I loved how on the nose this was, the Hulk smash, smash, smash bit. The fact that they actually, Hawkeye is there, but they leave him out of part of the verse. It was just superb. I really, 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 for one, want to go and see this musical.
Oh, wow. They're gonna do it.
I would love to see it, and yeah, they're definitely gonna do it.
Yeah, they're gonna. If Disneyland, or at least they'll start on Broadway and then just bring us for like off Broadway limited run and then into Disneyland.
I think it's too ironic. It's too.
It's not.
It's not. It's really not. It's so good. No,
the idea that you would actually go pay money, like, a musical costs like $60 or $70 to go and see one night of it. I would say I'd probably have the same reaction as Clint Barton. Yeah, got the joke. I'm halfway through. I'm going home.
I know. I loved his. I loved the whole toilet selfie as well. I thought that was hilarious. Where a guy asks him if he can take a selfie whilst he's at the urinal, and he says no, it's slightly inappropriate. And then, as he's at the wash basin, is it okay to do it now? I could just imagine that happens to so many sort of celebrities. Absolutely. And I thought this was hilarious.
It's a regular story from celebrities that's when people think they can ask them. They follow them to the bathroom to ask them for an autograph or a selfie. Ridiculous. But really interesting. And we do have another kind of big change to Clint Barton's character, or at least a revelation about his character. He now has the hearing aid, and I love that it's introduced in a comedy way, because he's turned off the hearing aid so he doesn't have to listen to the musical. Really good little way to introduce it.
Big thing from the comic books, by the way. But like, hopefully when they get more into it, I can kind of give you a bit more details on it. But it was nice to see the whole Rogers the musical. I cracked up, laughed. I know it's on Spotify already and a number of other places, so I am very much sure they will run with this. If it's similar to the Zemo dancing, we'll get like a 4-hour cut or something.
You wonder how many songs they've written. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. So a few people have already said, like, when they were doing the rounds on the interviews, Haley and Jeremy were kind of saying, people were asking, oh, like, is there more? Like, is there more than just that one song? And they were like, we're not prepared to say. I'm pretty sure we're going to see more. So yeah, definitely going to be interesting.
You're absolutely right. I'm sure we're going to hear more audio from that musical. I'm sure it'll be interesting to hear all the rejected songs that they put forward and landed on this particular one. It's really interesting, isn't it? All three of us on TV podcast industries have all been to a musical in the last month as one of our first live shows in the last 2 years. All of us went to see Book of Mormon, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was fantastic.
It really was.
Yep.
I think that's why I've got the musical thing going. So I really want to see Rogers, the musical. Mm-hmm. And I guess with a name like Rogers, the musical, if it was put in the hands of Matt Stone and Trey Parker, then I guess it would be as hilarious as Book of Mormon. And yes. I reckon the Buns of Steel would feature heavily.
America's ass, absolutely. I'm certain of that. A great fun introduction to the Barton family, and again, nice to have him with his family as well.
Definitely.
I just finally, before we kind of go into the next phase, where kind of they go for a meal. But what I really enjoy is getting to see the kids. The kids again. Your their personality is coming out slowly, and kind of we've seen some of these for split seconds over the courses of the film. Mm-hmm. But it is good to see, and especially his daughter, who is going to become a character. I can see I don't know who she'll be, what they're kind of, there's enough emphasis being placed on her, in especially this episode, where you're starting to see, okay, well, her opinion means a lot to Clint.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I know when she first appeared back at the start of Endgame, with her bow and arrow being taught by her dad, I think everybody at the time was kind of going, oh, maybe they're just going to make his daughter Kate Bishop. Yeah. And, you know, that there's going to be some way that they'll move this into the MCU. So it's great to see them all back in here. Do want to make mention, and I know the show is a much more fun Christmas comedy, but I do want to make mention, and I think it's just glaringly obvious in a year where we've had lots of Marvel TV, that back when we had Falcon and Winter Soldier, the opening episode of Falcon going home to his family, showing that they were all going through money troubles effectively, and that he couldn't play on his name in order to get a loan for a new business. That was quite a central theme of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah. Whereas here in the opening episode, we have Clint going out with his kids for a dinner and they get a free meal. It just gets comped without even asking for it. And he even protests and he still gets the free meal. So it's just quite interesting, seeing that in relief between each other on the Marvel TV shows. I'm sure everybody pores over every single script, and it was just interesting that he's being treated so well. Now I know Hawkeye was in the Battle of New York and saved New York, and this is in New York. So there's a little bit of a different side to it, but I just thought it was interesting that the opening episodes of both shows show a different treatment for two different Avengers.
Yes, and much to what we can assume in also Falcon and the Winter Soldier, two different races as well. So that played a massive part as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing they don't linger on too much in the episode, but I just thought was interesting as part of the musical, was his reaction to seeing, Natasha Romanoff played on stage. You know, he's not listening to the music, but it is his best friend that's up there being portrayed as this kick-ass fighter, in the musical. As you say, John, his character of Hawkeye is kind of relegated to a background singer, at least in the scene that we see. You know, we may have a particular musical number where he takes the lead, but it does feel like Hawkeye is set off to the side from the rest of the Avengers because, hey, he shoots arrows. So I just thought that was quite interesting that he's seeing his best friend up there, and there is a reaction. You know, again, the last time he saw her, effectively, she was falling to her death on Vermeer. So I'm sure there's some images conjured up there.
Yeah, definitely. It's just as you say, it's really nice getting this time with Clint and his family, but he has to cut that short because all over the news when they're back at the hotel is his Ronin suit, and so he goes out to investigate. So we have this the first connection where he effectively saves Kate, who's kind of been cornered in a car trying to escape from the Russian mafia that have followed her. And this just the context of this is that she has snuck into Armand the Third's house and found him murdered in the house.
Yeah.
Seemingly stabbed as well. That's what I'm guessing. So this is where she's kind of running away from that crime scene, but the Russian mafia have been able to track her, and we get this first meeting as he sort of takes them down and saves her to find out who's got the suit and why they're all over the TV. And of course, he's taken aback and surprised to see a 20-year-old woman in the suit. So this is a good introduction here, I think, for the two. Maybe showing that the street smarts of Katie isn't quite what she thinks they may be.
Ooh, Katie! I think you might get a punch from Case Bishop for calling her Katie.
Oh yeah. Well, I've totally, Katie Bishop, Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
Whoops. Sorry everyone. But yes, this is, this is a nice little sort of introduction here to kick off, to finish off episode 1, and to see where that goes then in episode 2.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As we get the fight with the Tracksuit Mafia, we do see that she holds her own for a fair bit.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
It's just only at the end where it's like, okay, there's that big brute of a guy.
Yeah.
And it's, again, there's raw talent in Bishop. It's going to have to be trained a bit more.
But pretty smart to jump into the car, lock the doors,
absolutely.
because it took them a while to smash through the windows as well, because they were using the fist, they weren't using implements to smash through the windows. But, I like that she at least gives herself a breathing space, if that's all she needed. And there is that great flip overhead and smack a guy's face off the bonnet of a car to knock him out. That was a cool move as well.
Oh, that looked amazing.
Yeah.
The stunt coordinator in this show so far is just the choice of like the bottles, as you said, the Jackie Chan-esque. In this, just her using, her smaller frame as that kind of fulcrum point to swing and jump.
Yeah.
And we see it like jumping all the way back very quickly to the underground scene where she's holding from the pipe and first she's trying to hit him in the leg and then she's like, oh, forget it. And she just pulls him in. Yeah. And she has to just try and squeeze the life out of his neck because she wasn't. And it's only when the guy is still too strong, pulls her down, she flips again. And I was like, yeah, cool. It's just the choice of how they fight is amazing.
Yeah, it was really good. And I really enjoyed just the overhead shot of Clint doing his belt flick at the guys.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought that was pretty cool. It was just super cool.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. That's kind of where we are at the end of the episode. Any notes for the episode? Who's going to take the other big note that we talked about? I
mean, there is only one omission so far from us, and that is the one-eyed dog rescued by Kate from the explosion at the charity gala / black market underground auction, and it is Pizza Dog from the one-eyed dog from Matt Fraction's comic run as well. And we see him getting a good slice of pizza as well from Kate, a bit of leftovers.
He is a very cute dog.
Oh, yeah.
Very. I was wondering would they tie him in because the way that she catches back up to him, she meets him outside when she's getting some air effectively, and then the way she catches back up to him is that he's dragging down one of the Russian gang, the guy who's loading up the truck, and finds the watch. And I was wondering whether they were going to tie the dog into the story by the fact that maybe he took the watch and swallowed it, and then the Russian gang were going to be after the dog that she took. Was that going to be the connection? But he didn't seem close enough to eat the watch, unfortunately.
But I think that is where it's going to go. Because why else are they still chasing her? I think it's going to be that the watch was swallowed by Pizza Dog.
Maybe.
That's where my head was going into episode 2.
There you go. I might be right then. Excellent. I wasn't the only one that thought that. Good stuff. No. Any other notes from the episode, guys?
Nothing major from myself.
No, nothing major from me either.
Excellent. Well, was this episode of Hawkeye on target? Chris, do you defend Hawkeye episode 1, Never Meet Your Heroes?
Yes. Unlike the moniker of this, please meet your heroes, because they will probably create something fantastic like this. This was a fun jaunt, well tied into the MCU. Left me kind of clamoring for episode 2, and luckily enough, we're able to roll straight in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 100% defend this episode.
Excellent. How about yourself, John? Was the episode on target for you?
Yeah, I do defend this first episode of Hawkeye. Give it 3.5 almond toffees out of 5. I thought it was really good. I loved Jeremy Renner. I loved the whole setup. I really want to see Kate's rapport with him now that they've been introduced. I think, I definitely defend this, but it took me a while to get into, I guess, the Christmas spirit, maybe. But I think it was more to do with the sort of little pastiche of Jack with the sort of evil mustache, and I guess how Kate's mother was painted. There's part of me thinking, oh, I kind of know where this is going. So I guess I was like a little unsure of how and where that was going. So I think the second watch improved it for me. But I mean, the opening I loved. I really think Haley Steinfeld is great as this. I loved the jokes through, from the bell tower destruction through to the musical. I really like the sense of humor. And as I say, I really enjoyed Jeremy Renner in this. I loved his facial expressions. I just like his sort of look. I thought it was great. Someone who's happy to be back with his family, and then seeing that suit and having to sort of, just nip out to have a look. So that for me was really good. And Pizza Dog as well. I thought was so pleased they brought Pizza Dog in on this series. Absolutely. So 3.5 almond toffees out of 5 for me.
Wow, excellent. That's pretty good for an opening episode.
Oh, it really is. Yeah.
What about yourself, Derek? Do you defend this opening episode of Hawkeye?
Yes, I do defend this episode. I think I liked it more than John actually when we watched it the first time. And I think it's partly because of the kind of heavy shows that we've been covering over the last couple of months. And they're not the only shows that we watch either. We watch a lot of heavy TV, which is really in depth. And this is quite a light show. It's a fun caper. And I really enjoyed that. I think I really need to watch a show like that right now. There's lots of things that you can watch that can be dark and can put you in a bad mood, or can just require a lot of thinking power to read between the lines of what's being presented on screen and that kind of stuff. But this was a fun action movie and a good kickoff to the show. I'm looking forward to the rest of the show.
Oh my goodness, I feel like Scrooge now. But truly, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you'll be visited by the ghost of Archer's past by the time it gets to Christmas, John.
Well, better be careful where he puts that point.
I think it's time for a drink. Let's get some eggnog going and go over for our Hawkeye pub quiz.
Yes, fellow quizzers, fellow defenders, welcome back to the bar, to the pub quiz. Get your pencil and paper at the ready for question 1 from episode 1. What 3 things do Clint Barton's children want to do for Christmas?
Excellent. So that's in the Chinese restaurant.
It certainly is.
Yes, excellent. If you want to enter the quiz, all you need to do is send your emails into feedback@tvpodcastindustry.com. With each of the answers, you can hold off until we finish the season. All 6 episodes will be up by the end of the year, and you can send an email to us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with each of the correct answers, and you'll be in with a chance of winning some Hawkeye goodies. John, do you want to give him the question one more time?
Certainly. What 3 things do Clint Barton's children want to do for Christmas?
Excellent. We have gotten some thoughts in on the first couple of episodes of Hawkeye. If you want to send in your thoughts, you can also email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can join us on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, or you can follow us over on Twitter at tvpodindustries. We'd love to hear your thoughts as we go through the show. First up, we got an email in before Hawkeye was released from Heather Wallace, one of our fellow defenders over in Australia, who says, "Hi Derek, John and Chris. I know I'm getting in early. Hawkeye hasn't even dropped yet, but I wanted to share why it has even more meaning for me today than it did when it first announced. Here in Canberra, the sleepy bush capital of Australia, there is a suburb called Barton. It's named after the first Prime Minister, Edward Barton, who took office in 1901. But every time I drive past road signs, I always think of Clint Barton and get a chuckle. The Barton suburb is also home to a well-renowned palliative care centre, and today my beautiful little mum is admitted for end-of-life care after a long illness. I'm taking comfort in her being in a place that shares the name of one of my favourite superheroes. I'm not exactly sure what Hawkeye the TV series will be about, but I won't be surprised if it includes Clint grieving about Natasha. So many of the MTV TV shows this year have handled grief and loss so well. Both Wanda and Monica's stories in WandaVision resonated with me. I've been grieving for my mom for a very long time, watching her health slip away and Vision's insight that what is grief but love persevering sums up my experience of losing first my dad 28 years ago and now my darling mom. I'm expecting that Hawkeye's Christmas setting will be bittersweet, and that's what I need this year. This will be my first Christmas without my mom Faye in all of my 50 years. No matter where I was in the world, I always came home to her for Christmas, so I won't be wanting the traditional stories this year. I think an action comedy is what I need. The MCU Marvel stories aren't just entertainment, they are our modern myths. They help us understand the world around us and show us how we can help those around us and be part of a family and community. I'm doing my own superhero suit up, putting on waterproof mascara and a big smile so my darling little mom won't be worried. I'm happy with you sharing this in the podcast. I really like the idea of people hearing my darling mom's name, Faye, all around the world. The TV podcast industry's community has been a welcome one to me since I found it. It's helped me through a few rough times in the last year. Thank you for creating this wonderful space. And in case we're not in touch later, Merry Christmas from Heather Wallace. Heather, thank you so much for reaching out to us. That's really, really sweet of you. I hope you're okay. It's a really tough time for anybody to go through, no matter how long a parent has been in declining health. I've experienced it myself, and I know it's a very tough experience to go through. But I hope you can find at least some joy and entertainment over this time to keep you going through the experience.
Yes, thank you so much, Heather. Honestly, it means a lot for you to reach out to us. It means a lot to share your story. We hope the show lives up to your expectation. It is that comedic kind of action comedy that takes your mind off everything. Like, this is a safe space to share things like this, and we're so happy that you have chosen to do that. And do you know what? Just because you need that comedic uplift, I won't sing.
Thanks, Chris.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much, Heather, for sharing that with us. Like, it's really personal to you, but we're glad you allowed us to share that. And I think, that is absolutely something that you shout, through this podcast, through the medium of Derek, shall we say, your mum's name, Faye, so that all our listeners can listen to, her name. And, I think in that you've given us, really something special about the importance of Christmas. And it really is. But it's important in different ways for different reasons, depending on, your circumstances. So, thank you so much, Heather, for that. It's a great piece of writing, to send in.
Absolutely. Thanks, Heather, and a very Merry Christmas to you as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Heather. Again, we also have some feedback from Claire Payne on episode 1. And Claire had this to say: Disney Plus were kind to gift us with 2 episodes that I watched twice. Episode 1 was exactly what I needed to understand who is Kate Bishop. Seeing the attack of New York in 2012, how it affected her family, and saw inspiration from Hawkeye. I really like how Kate doesn't overreact to situations. There is a great comedic humour that comes across intelligently. The auction of recovered Avengers items was a cool moment and a great way to reintroduce the Ronin suit, which essentially brings Kate and Clint together. Kate's fight sequence felt realistic for her skill and stature. I would pay to see Rogers the musical, wouldn't we all? But I don't think it would be a musical I would see over and over again. The reaction of the Barton family watching it was brilliant, and it was a really nice moment from Clint as he remembered Natasha. I like how we subtly got to see the changes in Clint's life, his hearing aid, and just generally and not being overly comfortable being recognised as a hero. an episode that I had high expectations for as I watched the main trailer a ridiculous amount of times, and I wasn't disappointed. It actually exceeded my expectations. Claire. Thanks, Claire. Yeah, it exceeded mine, I think to a fair amount. And as you said, yeah, it's actually interesting to think about. Clint wasn't a hero. He was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent for years, always in the shadows, up in high perches, away from everything. So, yeah, he's not a big man for the kind of the spotlight, unlike Tony.
Yeah, and definitely Rogers the musical is a must. We need to get this trending, fellow defenders. And yeah, I'm with you. I think Jeremy Renner playing Clint here was just really, really good. You know, fun. And just making those little moments like with Natasha on stage, just, you know, making that subtle change was really, really cool. And it is, you know, Kate is played really well here. And I think, you know, there's certainly more to come from their interaction for episode 2 as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Claire.
Let's head on over to Facebook. On Facebook, Dan Lee says, the 2012 opening gave me chills, seeing it from the perspective of a non-Avenger. Enjoyed the rest of the episode, so we'll definitely be giving the rest of the season a go. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. Brandy Elise Anderson also says, loved the attack on New York City opening, and seeing it from the people on the ground viewpoint was great, especially because outside of Iron Man 3 and Homecoming, they barely mention it. And even then, it's as if the citizens just moved on without much fanfare. But this gave me some feeling as seeing Monica experience the return from the blip in WandaVision. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. It's all about the blip now. Whereas this is not only a throwback to 2012, but it is a throwback to that referencing in the MCU. And it was really special, for sure. Thanks so much, Brandy. John Higley says, I have loved every MCU Disney show, but this one so far is head and shoulders above the rest. This is exactly what I wanted and more. Great stuff, John. Good to hear your thoughts as well on Hawkeye. Hopefully we'll be getting a load more of your feedback, because this sounds like this is right up your alley.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe my feelings about Hawkeye. It's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, all the other shows have kind of played with expectations, but this is exactly what I wanted from this show. So I'm really excited to see more of the show. Thanks so much, John. Let's finish our episode 1 chat with some audio feedback from Matt Murdoch, Musical Concepts over on Twitter. He has some thoughts about the music, shown here from Christoph Beck, the composer for this season of Hawkeye.
Hello, Chris, John, and Derek. Thought I'd do the reverse order since I don't normally say Chris's name first, and I promise I'll put John in front at some point in the future as well. Very happy to have another Marvel franchise in 2021. Loved the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye. Thought it was great. Was super pleased that Christoph Beck is doing at least some of the scoring. There's another gentleman who is also credited, Michael Paraskevas. I hope that I said that name correctly. Apologies to Michael if I did not. But what I really wanted to talk about was how the first 15 minutes of the pilot episode seemed to be wrought with Christoph Beck kind of signatures. When we talked about What If, I commented on how Laura Cartman would sometimes throw her signature sound into the scoring, even when she was using themes created by other fellow MCU composers. Here, Christoph Beck's signature sound kind of appears in the first 15 minutes in a couple of ways. I'll concentrate mostly on the opening credits, and that theme was very interesting in itself. I'll play a little part of that here. Now, there's something a little weird about that, but let me play the second phrase of that, which has the same weirdness to it, and then I'll comment on it. What's weird about it, you ask? Well, you notice how when that second chord drops, it seems like it holds longer than the other two. Most of that is due to the fact that he's using a little bit of asymmetry in the count, or what we call the meter. He's using mixed meter. In both cases, you're counting to 4, and then you're counting to 6, and then you're counting to 4 again. And the 4 and a 6 create a 10, and you can divide 10 easily by 2s, and you could just count it that way. Or you can see that the 2 of those, the 4 and a 6, add up to 2 5s. And something that Christoph is really known for is mixed meter stuff that do count in 5 or in 7s. The Ant-Man main theme is in 7. But there's also a great theme for Ant-Man and the Wasp called It Ain't Over Till the Wasp Lady Stings. I love that little play on It Ain't Over Till the Fat Lady Sings. Wonderful thing, but it's in 5/4. It's this that I'm talking about. Now, you can think of that in 2s and 3s, or you can think of that in just counts of 5 total. And you have the same type of formula being used for the Hawkeye theme. You have a 4 and a 6, which are merely multiples of 2 and 3. And so that creates something that makes everything feel just a little bit off. And I'm not implying that narratively he's trying to say anything like that. I'm just saying that this is the kind of thing that Christoph Beck likes to play with. He likes to make beats not fall where you expect them to. And to me, that makes it exciting. There's also something else from Ant-Man and the Wasp that is very similar to this opening theme. And that is the chord progression. The way the harmony moves is very similar to a tune called Misdirection from the Ant-Man and the Wasp soundtrack. Go check that out if you can. The chord progression is almost exactly the same. This particular chord progression, this particular harmony is something that Beck uses often. It's, don't worry about these numbers, but it's the flat 6 down to the 4, down to the 1. It's a pretty common progression used by a lot of composers, but it always kind of gives everything kind of an epicness. But I thought I would point all of that out. Hope you guys are enjoying Hawkeye as much as I am so far. Take care.
Thank you so much, Matt. And yes, it is. You should always lead with me. I know you say you want to do John next, but no. Just always go Chris, Derek, John. It rolls off the tongue so much easier.
It's just alphabetical order, Chris.
Yeah, it's alphabetical.
Okay. Actually, that's why it rolls off better. In terms of, again, thank you so much, Mr. Murdoch. You do amazing things when you send these breakdowns. I would never have guessed any of that stuff. And as you break down the science behind it, it all makes even greater sense, and I enjoy it even more. So again, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great thoughts, Matt. Thanks so much for your musical ruminations and thoughts. It's really great getting that perspective for each of the Marvel shows we've covered. Superb stuff. Thanks.
Yeah. We'll end the coverage of Hawkeye episode 1 there. As we said earlier on, this was recorded as a two-parter with both episodes 1 and episode 2 recorded at the same time, but the discussions ran long, as always happens on TV podcast industry, so I thought I'd break it out into 2 separate episodes. Expect our discussion about episode 2 out later on this weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you again next time.
It is a pleasure speaking with you, as always, about all things Marvel, all things Hawkeye. And remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending.
Bye.
Bye.